Hello and welcome to this PPR on Monopolies. So it's A2 Monopolies on market structures. So let's get into it. First thing I need you to write down are the assumptions of pure monopolies. Okay, so you should have got the 6, so single seller, obviously, which is a monopoly. So that's a single firm that is the industry, and there's obviously many buyers. They are price makers. They've got complete barriers to entry and exit. There's imperfect knowledge. They can make supernormal profits all the time, so the short run and the long run, and they've got no close substitutes. So you need to learn them. Second thing I need you to do is draw the monopoly diagram, please. So hopefully you've drawn something that looks like that. You've identified that Q1 is where MR equals MC, and that's the profit maximizing position. You bring that up to the demand curve or the AR curve, and that's their price. And then off the average cost curve, you can tell the unit cost, and therefore the difference between the two is supernormal profits. Economic case against the monopoly. There was 4 that we had an acronym for. See if you can recall them, please. So hopefully you could remember that they were SPEW. So that stood for that they provided a poor service due to a lack of competition. The prices were obviously high. They restrict output and charge higher prices. The market failure from last year, which can be regressive upon people in lower incomes. They're not efficient, so they're X inefficient in regards to diseconomies of scale, and they're not static efficient. So you can see in the diagram beside, they are not allocatively efficient, and that's where AR equals MC, so they do not produce there, and they are not productively efficient where AC equals MC either. And the welfare, they restrict consumer surplus, and they're allocatively inefficient. See if you can think of economic case arguments for monopoly power then. So some arguments are that profits could be used to fund and invest in research and development, or investment in expansion or improving the production process. Hopefully you can remember that that's called dynamic efficiency. They could also possibly be a natural monopoly, so therefore one firm should benefit from the economies of scale. Domestic monopolies obviously face global competition, so there's an argument that yes, domestically they might be a monopoly, but in the global market they actually are maybe a small fish, and they might need that position to compete internationally and obviously create jobs at home. Monopolistic competition can be regulated. And the price discrimination may help some consumers, so they may actually charge lower prices at certain times to capture more of the market, which actually benefits consumers. One other one you could add in there, similar to the regulation, is it depends upon the degree of contestability ultimately. So that's something you could think of as well. So the first one there was that the funds can be used to research and develop their products. So that obviously would imply dynamic efficiency. So have a go, pause the video and see if you can draw the diagram for dynamic efficiency. So hopefully you remember that we're just looking at the MC curve with the AR and MR. So this is the original position. So we're comparing the price of the monopoly and the output of the monopoly to a firm that's allocatively efficient, which is where AR equals MC. And if they do reinvest their supernormal profits, they may be able to improve their production process, and what that does is that helps them be more efficient and cut costs, so their marginal cost decreases. So you shift that downwards, and you therefore get a new dynamically efficient price and output that is better than the allocatively efficient outcome. Okay, so the new MR-MC position is actually with a lower price, which is the gains of dynamic efficiency to consumers in the long run. So that's a diagram that you should learn. Obviously the economic case for monopoly depends upon the types. So when you're evaluating monopolies, you could obviously put in, as I mentioned, contestability, which would imply that there's different types of monopolies. So see if you can remember the 3 types of monopolies. So I'm hoping you've wrote down that there's a pure monopoly, which is whenever the firm is the industry, and that is that they've got 100% of the market share. There's also working monopolies that the CMA investigate that have got 25% or more of the market share. And you've also got dominant monopolies that have got 40% or more of the market share. You might actually have got a fourth, which would be a natural monopoly, and there's a diagram we need to know for natural monopolies. So on the natural monopoly diagram, I want you to answer them two questions. So show supernormal profits for the profit maximizing natural monopoly, and show the loss which will be incurred if the natural monopoly is forced to be allocatively efficient, perhaps by a regulator. So hopefully you can remember that a natural monopoly is an industry which is unfeasible for competition. So therefore one firm should dominate and provide the service or product as the costs required or the output required to minimize costs are so high, okay, due to infrastructure, due to the sheer size of the market. So therefore you never see the MES, the lowest point on an LRAC curve. So that's why they're both, the LRAC and the LRMC are both downward sloping. So you can see the supernormal profits where MR equals MC is P1, and if they're forced to be allocatively efficient, the issue is that they will make a loss, so that the LRAC will be higher than the AR curve, in that sort of orangey colour is the loss that they will incur. So that's a diagram that you could practice a few times and get right. And finally then, policies. So see if you can identify a few policies the government could introduce to control or eradicate the market failure associated with monopolies. So there's a few interventions the government could use. You can read through them yourself. There's obviously there's reasons there for the intervention and how it would work, and there's also AO4. So that's obviously important this year when we're doing essays to evaluate all your points. So obviously I'll let this run for a minute or a couple of seconds. You can screenshot this, and that is most but not all the stuff you need to revise for Monopoly. So if you didn't get all them questions right or the diagrams correct, repeat and keep doing so until you get it all okay.